So I thought I'd talk about Joe Abercrombie today. Uh, that's our topic of discussion today. Just needed something to talk about, I guess, for my, next video. It's been a while since I've done one, and the last couple of months, I've been reading a lot of his works. Well, technically, I've been listening to them on Audible, not really reading. Don't really read too much these days. I just listen to books these days. So I gave his a couple of months ago. I gave his First Law trilogy another shot. I remember trying it out a long time ago, but I gave up or didn't really pursue it beyond a point. But this time I thought, hey, someone recommended it to me, and so I thought this time I'll give it another go and try to stick with it a little longer. And what I found out was that, when I stuck with it a little longer, that, the story does, get interesting and stuff. So after a while, it's like, hard to put down, you just want to, devour everything, just finish one book, get on to the next one, get on to the next one. And you're sad when the First Law trilogy ends. Then you give, some of the standalone books a try, and, they're also really good. Well, most of them. And now he's like in the process of writing a sequel trilogy. The first two books are out. The third is coming September of this year. So right now I'm on the first book of his sequel trilogy, and it's also getting interesting. So hopefully I'll be done with the second book soon as well, and ready to pick up the third book when it comes out in September. So basically, what he writes is fantasy, but it's there's a part of me that thinks that fantasy can't be really good unless there's an element of realism in it, and you will find a little bit of that here. It's I think fantasy is only good if there's layers, and one of those layers has got to be like realism. It's all very well having dragons and magic and magical swords and this and that, but if it's not grounded in reality somewhere, then it's not really going to be that good. And I think the same is true of Song of Ice and Fire, and the same is true of this book, this series. In all honesty, I was just we've been waiting so long for the next book in the Song of Ice and Fire series, and just to keep us occupied, a lot of us, I guess, have been looking for something else, and when we try different books, I don't know if that's been your experience, but most of them have been disappointments. Most of them, I've given them a shot and put down and not been able to finish. But this Joe Abercrombie's works, these works by Joe Abercrombie have kind of been the exception to the rule. They've been like, yeah, it's really good. It's almost as good as George R. R. Martin's works. Sometimes you think it's even better. You know what I mean? So it is good stuff. It is different as well. Lots of good characters. I guess it all starts with the First Law trilogy. There's 3 books in this series. That trilogy, it starts with what was the first book called again? The Blade itself, and then it moves on to what was the second book? What was it? Memory, of course. I guess it's not as good as it used to be. Oh, first book was The Blade itself. What was the second book? I can't even remember the name of the second book. What was the third book? The third book was The Last Argument of Kings. And then it moves on to, well, anyways, let me stick to the original trilogy first. Basically, focuses on 3 or 4 main characters. There's Baez, it's like a wizard. There's Logan Ninefingers, it's like a fierce warrior. There's Giselle, Dan Luther, is like, officer in the King's Army. And this R.D. West, she's like the love interest. And yeah, there's a bunch of other characters too, but those are kind of the main characters in the first trilogy. There's also Khalul. We kind of never see him, but he's an important character. So Joe Abercrombie's work in in this world mostly focuses on day-to-day happenings, but there's a larger backdrop, like in the old ancient rivalry that continues to this day between Baez and Khalul. I guess spoiler warning. There's a lot of spoilers here. Don't listen any further if you don't want some spoilers. But yeah, there's this ancient rivalry between Baez and Khalul. Both ancient wizards, and that's the backdrop against which the struggle of everyday life is presented. And it's presented taking various characters. Starts out with, like I said, Logan, Giselle, R.D. West, Colum West, Inspector Glockta, Inquisitor Glockta, and a vast array of other characters too. But yeah, the author uses these characters to show us, everyday struggles. But there's a larger backdrop as well, people pulling the strings of the world, and as the world changes, we see how it affects, normal people in their everyday lives. So that's basically, how his works are. That's basically what his works are in the first Law Trilogy world, which continues in like 3 standalone books, and this new trilogy, the Age of Madness trilogy. It's set in the same world that he's currently working on. And he also has a collection of short stories called Sharp Ends, which is kind of same in the set in the same world. And yeah, it's really good writing. Like I said, you try so many authors and so many books, and you put them down after a few pages because they're not really any good. But this is the exception. And the writing is funny at times. A lot of times, what he uses is like internal monologues. So those are like really good, funny dialogue between characters. Also, those are some of his strong points, and it's all like gritty and realistic, and you always feel strange when you say fantasy is realistic, but there is a strong element of realism here. There's no like you'll notice in his books, no real happy endings. Instead, what you get is like realistic endings that you might find in normal everyday life. So yeah, that's pretty much Joe Abercrombie and his works in the first Law universe. So yeah, if you want, I won't say no to you guys checking out his works. I'm not gonna force you to check them out. I don't like pushing my beliefs or my whatever on other people. If you're interested, you can try it out. If not, I gave you a brief overview of his works in the first Law trilogy. And like I said, I got done with the first Law trilogy, got done with the standalone books. Best Served Cold, really good. Heroes, also really good. Red Country, hit or miss, not so good. Then now I'm on to the sequel trilogy. I think it's called At the Age of Madness. The first book I finished, it was a little. No, I'm on the first book. It's A Little Hatred. It's called A Little Hatred. The second book is, I think it's called The Trouble with Peace. I'll get on that soon. And the third book comes out in September, The Wisdom of Crowds. And I'm sure, there'll be another sequel trilogy after this as well. This sequel trilogy kind of focuses on the next generation, and there might be another generation too. Who knows? After this, so he's only 47, Joe Abercrombie. I think he's like about 47. So no doubt he'll continue working in this universe for a long time to come. At least maybe the next 15 years, and he does write fairly quickly, like almost a book a year. So, we don't have to wait 10 years for, his next book to come out, unlike certain authors, It is what it is. But yeah, that's today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. And touch base with you again soon.